I'm Virginia Knowles, and I'm Mary's youngest daughter. Several years ago, when we were in Port Charlotte visiting my grandparents, a little discussion broke out at the breakfast table. And my brother was claiming that I was the most difficult child in the family, and my sister readily agreed. I looked to my mother for support, and she said, "Yes, they're right." She was an honest woman. Anyway, I am so thankful to have the opportunity to honor her with this eulogy, and even more grateful that I was able to share my appreciation with her while she was still alive. I'm glad that many of my children and I were able to visit her a few weeks ago and express our affection to her. We just did not expect that it would be the last time that we would see her. You never know that. After we returned home, she was very thrilled when I called her and told her I'd been offered a new job. I hadn't worked outside of the home in over 25 years. She was very thrilled. She always rejoiced with our victories, and she consoled us in our struggles. And I knew that I could call her at any time, and she would give me comfort or counsel or whatever it was. Sometimes it was, you need to do something different. Again, she was an honest woman. My sister Barb says, and I wholeheartedly agree, that Mom was the pivot of the entire family. She organized gatherings for the extended family. She kept everyone in touch with her annual Christmas letter. She wasn't one to pick up and call on the phone much, but she was always glad when we called her. And she visited my family in Florida whenever she could, and she always made sure it was a fun experience. Like last year, she came and took us all to SeaWorld. We knew that she loved us, and she knew that we loved her. My family members are not the only recipients of her motherly encouragement and comfort, or her friendship and nurturing. Dad has said often that until now he didn't realize how many lives my mother had touched beyond our own family. Many of you are here today. We received notes from countless people this past week sharing how much she has meant to them, and we believe every word. We are equally honored by your presence here today as we remember and celebrate her life. I have myriad memories of my mother throughout my childhood, teen, and young adult years, and then have been enrolled as a grandmother to my children and my sister's children, and also as a great-grandmother to my grandsons. One of my most endearing recollections is from a day I wasn't acting particularly grateful for her gifts. It was a Christmas day in the late 1960s. Mom and Dad gave me a radio flyer Little Red Wagon, but I thought it was a boy toy, and I refused it. So Mom said that if I didn't want it, she would take it. She filled it with her own stash of Christmas presents, and then rode around the house in it. Of course, my jealousy was quickly incited, and she graciously gave it back to me. She was a very smart mother. As my father talked about, my mother has always been up for learning something new. When I started college, she took a class in small business management with me. Now, I know a lot of kids might be upset to have their mother tag along to school with them, but I was delighted. I treasured this time with her, and she actually put it to good use by starting a business right after that. Mom took such good care of her own mother and father and mother-in-law in their later years that I once told her I wished she could take care of me when I was 90. She cheerfully declined. Right now, I wish I could just see her when I turn 50 this year, much less 90. I look forward to seeing her in heaven someday when we will both have healthy new bodies. Until then, I will think of her often and fondly, and I know you will do the same. And in closing, this word eulogy literally means a good word. My words are in praise of my mother's good deeds, her good heart, and her good life. But it does not just mark the ending of that life. A commencement marks the end of an educational endeavor, but also the beginning of a life of productive work. A commissioning marks the end of purposeful training, but also the beginning of a season of service to others. A eulogy marks the end of a life well lived, but a eulogy is also a beginning. It marks the end of an old life of enjoying the presence of one we love, but also the beginning of a new life of carrying that presence forward in our hearts, following the praiseworthy examples, and passing along the love we have received. I'm glad that all of you came. I know many of you signed the guest book when you arrived today, and during the reception, please take the time to go back to that guest book and write down some special memories or thoughts. And I thank you for taking the time. I know many of you drove hours and hours, sometimes days. Thank you for taking the time to honor my